Welcome to my channel on linguistics and language learning. In this video, I share with you how to write an article publishable in international journals. Every author or every writer wants their paper or their articles to be published in journals, especially if they want to get wider audience. They prefer to choose international journals to get the articles published. However, to publish our article in international journals is not easy. Many articles are rejected. Therefore, in this video, I will share with you the tips how to write an article publishable in international journals, or I just want to share with you the way how to make your article publishable or worth to be published in international journals. First of all, we need to know that articles that can get published in international journals are articles that contain a scientific report. Therefore, we need to differentiate between journalistic and scientific reports. Both journalistic and scientific reports contain data. You see that when journalists want to publish their news, of course, they must have data. Without data, they cannot report anything. And of course, when you write scientific reports, you also need data. So how are they different? In journalistic reports, you don't need any scientific procedure and reasoning. You don't need a logical reasoning. You don't need scientific reasoning or theoretical reasoning. You just provide data as they are. However, in providing scientific reports, you need to employ scientific procedure. So the reports are based on the relevant theories and clear methodology. And, this reflects scientific reasoning. So your reasoning must be scientific. Your reasoning must logically scientific. Therefore, if you only report based on the data, what you're doing and what you're writing is just a journalistic report. Well, now let's focus on scientific reports. When you send article or when you want to send article to journals, especially international journals, usually the international journals, even though this also depends on the targeted journals, usually the structure of the article is in IMRaD structure: introduction, method, results, and discussion. If you ask me a question, is there any literature review? Yes, the literature review is included in the introduction. So there is no special section for literature review in the IMRaD structure. In addition to IMRaD structure, you also need to write a title and the abstract. And after discussion, you also need to write conclusion. And finally, you need to write references. Without any references, your works or your articles must be rejected. And usually, international journals require the writers to write their articles within 4,000 and 8,000 words. Okay, so try not to write less than 4,000 words. Try not to write more than 8,000 words, even though, the number of words depends on the internationals that you want to send your articles. Okay, now title. Be careful in writing the title. Why? Because title is the first statement or the first words that are going to be read by the editor. Because when you send your article into journals, your articles will be processed by the editor. So your title must be informative. Informative means your title must describe what is discussed in the article. In other words, we can also say your title must be descriptive. It describes what is going to be discussed in the article. The second one, in order to attract the attention of the editor, you also need to make your title attractive. Attractive in the sense that your title has beneficial qualities or features that induce editor to accept what is being offered. Okay, so try to make your article attractive by providing beneficial qualities, by providing reasons to make the editors accept your paper. And the last one is your title must be accurate. Okay, your title must be presented in a correct spelling, diction, and structure. The other section of the articles or of the scientific articles is abstract. Abstract is not absolutely abstract, which cannot be seen, which is, invisible. Abstract actually is the summary of your paper. Okay, so the abstract has to start with a brief background about the overall issue addressed in the article. Okay, so please provide a short background or a brief background about the problem or the issue that you are going to address in your article. And the second one, the abstract should then indicate the main aim or the main purpose of the study or the main objective of the study. Many articles are rejected because they start immediately by providing the objective of the study or the aim of the study. Therefore, as I suggest you to provide a brief background before you come to mention or to write the purpose or the objective of your study. And the next one, your abstract should also contain methodology. The methodology used in your study should also be briefly described. The method, the data collection, data analysis procedure, okay, should be mentioned briefly in the abstract. And after that, you provide findings of your study. You just summarize your findings. You don't need to make your findings in detail in the abstract section. And you see that the methodology chosen must be clear in order that the findings can be measured. When the methodology is not clear, your findings are not measurable. So there is a reason to the editor to reject your paper. But if the method is clear and then your finding is measurable, and that is one of the ways to attract the attention of the editor. And the last one, you also need to provide a statement of conclusions in your abstract. And this conclusion is very important, especially in order to show your contributions, okay, in filling gaps of the literature. Okay, so this is the structure of your abstract. And usually the abstract ends with keywords, usually at least three, and not more than 7 keywords. Again, it depends on the journal. Okay, it depends on the local policy of the journal. Okay, usually the keywords are words and phrases. So don't think that keywords must only be words. No, it can be phrases, but not clauses. Okay, words or phrases. And usually the keywords are written in an alphabetical order, not based on the emphatic order, but alphabetical order. And then we come to E, IMRaD. Okay, IMRaD, introduction. Okay, so I there stands for introduction. In, in introduction, you should provide research problem, literature review, and research gap. Research problem, you see, that is actually the heart of the research. Okay, research problem is the heart of research. Why? Because research is conducted to provide solution to the problems. If your background doesn't contain any problem, so the study doesn't need to be conducted. Okay, so the problem is the heart of the research. Like us human beings, we cannot live without our heart. And there is no paper, there is no scientific paper without any problem, because the research is conducted to provide solutions to the problems. And once you identify the problem, and of course, you can design the literature review appropriately. Okay, therefore, the problem needs to be identified carefully in order that you can also choose the appropriate literature review. Now, what is the function of literature review? Literature review is used only to show or to make the readers know what is out there. What is out there means what is out there about the topic you are talking about in this paper. And then, of course, by providing good literature review, you show your mastery over a subject. So you convince the editor that you know exactly what you are writing. You know the theory that motivates you to do the research. And of course, you can locate the area of your research within the literature. Okay. Okay, this is actually the function of literature review. But remember, literature review is not a collection of theories, but it contains your review of literature. Okay, in order to show that you master the topic you are talking about. Okay, next, the most important part in introduction is research gap. Okay, research gap. What is research gap? Research gap, you see, it is a gap that you're going to fill in by your present study. That is a gap. That is a research gap. Why is it important? It is important in order to show that your paper will give contribution to the existing literature related to your topic. Okay, if you want to contribute, of course, you must provide something that has not been discussed before, that has not been studied before. And how do you find a research gap? Do do we research just to fill in gaps in the literature? These are questions that come in our mind when we want to formulate the research gap. Now, how to find research gap? How do you find research gap? First of all, you need to read as many related previous studies as possible. Read many related previous studies. So you know the existing literature. You know that this has been discussed and this has been discussed. This part has been discussed. Okay, this part has been discussed in the existing literature. Read as many previous literature as possible. so that you know what has not been discussed, what has not been researched in the previous study. And that is you are, okay? There is your position. You are going to fill in that gap, okay? Once you are able to identify the gap, your paper will provide novelty. And novelty actually is the main factor, okay? Is the main reason for editor to accept the paper. So you have to know exactly what is known and what is unknown. You have to know exactly what has been researched and what has not been researched in a similar topic. And then you provide that gap. Okay, that is actually the position of gap in your paper. In other words, in order of that you are able to write good introduction, you need to read many literature or many previous studies related to your topic. Otherwise you cannot find the gap. Otherwise you cannot provide novelty in your paper. If there's novelty in your paper, just replication of the previous studies or the previous paper, yeah, I think your paper will be possibly will be high possibly rejected. Now, so this is these are steps how to formulate your research gap. So you explore what has been done related to your topic, okay, in the previous studies, and what do you think? Evaluate them. Evaluate those previous studies and then synthesize in order to provide, okay, what has been left in the previous studies. So you know what is lacking, what is left in the previous studies, what is not discussed in the previous studies. Okay, and your research is going to fit that in order to complete what is left, in order to complete the gap that has been left in the previous studies. Okay, so if you're able to find a research gap and then you have already ensured the editor to accept your paper, and after providing the research gap, and then you provide the objectives of your study, and then the introduction is, or that is the end part of the introduction. And then we are going to come to the methodology. Before coming to methodology, I would like to show you some useful expressions in stating the gap. Okay, several expressions to indicate research gap. You can use, there's a problem in this topic, there's a problem in this part, or you can write this: despite efforts done, something undesirable is taking place, and provide your evidence. The problem has negatively affected by blah 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 blah, because blah 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 blah. You just provide the reasons. A possible cause of the problem is blah blah blah. Nevertheless, no solution has been provided. It means that this is left in the previous studies. Therefore, you want to fit it. You want to complete it. You want to fill in that gap. Perhaps a study which investigates this topic is, you know, yeah, is small in numbers. So, yeah, you are going to provide further exploration of the study. This is one of the example. You see, this is what we call as the problem. Yeah, pauses are generally understood as a temporary stop. However, Such understanding does not apply in translation process. Okay, there's a problem. Okay, pauses are generally understood like this. Okay, pauses generally are understood as influencing or disfluency. However, such understanding does not applicable. So you have already shown the problem. And then you provide previous studies related to pauses. And here you are. These are several previous studies on pauses. And based on this, you provide here you provide here the reasons why you need to conduct the study. However, the question arises in terms of the exact cognitive processes taking place during the process. In other words, you convinced that these previous studies did not talk about the exact processes, exact cognitive processes that were taking place during the process, and you want to fill in that gap. In addition, different translators took pauses for different activities and purposes because professional translators, for example, might take pauses differently compared to non-professional ones. Okay, so this is the logical reasons. As I told you, provide reasons why. Okay, this is the reason to strengthen, okay, to strengthen your gap statement. Your gap statement is the, however, the question arises in terms of exact cognitive processes. It seems that exact cognitive processes were not discussed in previous studies, and you want to discuss them in this study. So you provide also further logical reasons why this topic or this part needs to be studied. Therefore, therefore, this is actually, the aim of your study. It is worth comparing the behavior of student and professional translators in taking pauses while translating a text. Okay, that is the purpose of your study. Okay, so you provide previous studies and then you find out what has been done and what has not been done, and you fill in that gap. Okay, you fill in that gap, and then you provide reasons why you think that you fill that gap. Okay, and then you provide the objective of your study. Okay, well, let's continue with the methodology. So methodology is used to answer the question, how did you solve the problem? Okay, the problem that has been mentioned in the introduction. Remember that research is conducted in order to provide solution to the problem. And how did you solve the problem? Okay, is clearly discussed or is briefly discussed in the methodology section or method section. And I use here simple past. How did you solve the problem? Because you need to write your sentences in simple past tense or in past tenses when you are presenting or you are writing the methodology section, because you are going to write what you did. Okay, what you did. So what methods you selected, for example. So here you are. The first one, describe the methods accurately and precisely. Describe whether you use qualitative method or negative method or just descriptive method. Please mention it. Okay, and then you have to justify the method criteria. Why this method, okay, is suitable, with the objective of your study. Okay, why you choose that method? Is it the best method that fit, okay, your research question? Okay, so justify the method criteria. And then, of course, this is similar to state why this particular methodology is chosen. Okay, methodology here includes your data, okay, the type of research, data, your participants, your instruments, whether they are really useful, they are really helpful in providing the data or in order to help you to answer the research question, and also state how to apply the methodology. Okay, please, for example, date, data collection method. How did you apply? How did you collect the data? How did you analyze the data? So you have to mention this clearly, okay, in order that the reviewers or the editors really know what you did, okay, and they are sure that you have done the research. Okay, because they didn't see you doing the research. You just give them the report of your research or the result of your research. Therefore, you need to convince them that you really did the research. Of course, you have to show scientific procedure of doing the research. Okay, now how do you present, or how are you presenting the results of your study? The first one, the result of your study must reflect the procedures mentioned in the research method. In other words, there must be logical relationship between the results of your study and the methods that you have chosen or the methods that you have selected. For example, if the method is quantitative, okay, and then the results are in the form of statements, and this is not logic. This is not logical because you have to provide statistical data, okay, the data in numbers. Okay, therefore, when you write like that, your article will be rejected. Okay, your article will be rejected, your paper will be rejected because the results are not in line with the procedures mentioned in the methodology section. And you have to display your data analysis, whether you display the results of data analysis in figures or tables. Yeah, figures and tables make your findings easy to be measured. Okay, so I suggest you to use figures or tables in displaying your the result of your data analysis, and the findings must be derived from data analysis. Okay, the findings must be derived from data analysis, and after that, you have to provide detailed elaboration. So your findings must contain argument. This is my finding, and there must be elaboration to your findings. Otherwise, your findings are only list of findings, not in the form of essay. Okay, so you must provide detailed elaboration. And the last part of IMRaD is discussion. Discussion must be scientific. Yeah, discussion must be scientific. If it is scientific, there must be previous literature. There must be quotation. There must be quotation in your discussion. Discussion is discussing your findings. You discuss your findings. Why your findings are like that? Okay, so you need to discuss them. Okay, you have to argue the significance of the findings, that your findings are unique, then you got, for example, new findings you have to argue with. Okay, and your arguments, okay, your arguments must be compared to the existing literature or to the previous research findings. Whether you support the research findings, you conform the previous literature, or you reject the previous findings. Yeah, for example, if your findings are not in line, and you have to provide logical reasons why your research, the result of your study, are different with the results of the previous studies. Okay, so this is discussion. Discussion is very important. Okay, so that is the place where you relate what you found, okay, with the existing literature or with the previous studies. Okay, that's actually the end of IMRaD section, and this is the last the last part actually in your writing, that is conclusion. Okay, conclusion is not a summary. I emphasize that conclusion is not a summary. You don't need to summarize, only to summarize the important points of your findings. No. In other words, your conclusion should not just repeat findings and discussion. Now the question, is it okay to provide a summary? Yes, it's okay to provide a summary in your conclusion. It's okay to repeat your findings. However, that's not the real conclusion. So, the conclusion should deal with, so what? If the findings are like this, what is your final thought about your findings? Okay, that's what you're writing in conclusion. Okay, and tell why your finding is important. Okay, in order that you can provide implication for practice. The other thing that you also need to provide in your conclusion is the limitation of your study. Okay, and this is important in order to provide possibilities or opportunities to further researchers, okay, to research on the similar topic with you, but in different parts. Okay, so I suggest you to provide the limitation of your study. And finally, based on your limitations of your study, you suggest new lens for the problem. Maybe you only look at the problems from this point of view, and then you suggest further studies on a similar topic to take a closer look at this problem. And for the readers, if you want to do research on the same topic with the previous studies, I suggest you to read carefully the conclusion. Okay, so a quality research, or sorry, a quality paper or a quality article must have a good conclusion, and a good conclusion provides suggestions based on the limitation of their study. Well, the last part here is references. Okay, references. References are written differently in different journals depending on the referencing style system applicable in the specific journals. Okay, so you may be suggested to use APA citation style. Okay, this referencing style is used mostly in international journals, even though some international journals also require you to use MLA referencing style or Chicago referencing style in order to help you with writing references. I suggest you to use Mendeley application. Yeah, Mendeley referencing manager. So you will be assisted to provide the references or the bibliography. Okay, I think that's all. Hopefully, this video is helpful for you, yeah, to improve the quality of your paper, and so that your paper can be published in international journals. Well, that's all, and see you in the next video.